Alright, Diablo players, let's go over what are the steps to progression in the end game and how to get way more powerful and get way more defenses in the game, and kind of what are the steps to playing Diablo as a brand new player, or maybe you're a returning player. You played back when level 100 was the max and you haven't checked out a bunch of the updates. So this is kind of the order, and I say kind of the order because sometimes you access things in other orders because, well, it just happens to be an item that drops and you can get stuff done a little bit faster, or maybe you are playing a better build. So this is a steps to the end game and min-maxing your character to get it as powerful as possible. So there is actually one area where I'm going to consider it step 0. Before you even play the game, I highly recommend you guys to check out a build guide for your class with the gameplay, so you can actually check out maybe the gameplay for that specific class or the build, because some builds, they kind of tap out a little bit earlier. There are definitely builds that are thousands of times stronger than other builds, and that's simply due to the way the game has progressed through basically a bunch of aspects giving certain skills way more DPS, and other aspects just don't exist for specific skills. So the main thing that I want you guys to do is look up the class that you want and then type in like maybe season 9. You can watch my videos or any other content creators, but make sure you like what you see for the gameplay before you even decide for your class, because you may not enjoy that part of the class or that build after you watch kind of how it performs. Maybe there's too many skill interactions. Maybe you want a more chill build. You have to look at that before you even decide which class that you want to start, because I know the game recently went free on PlayStation, so a lot of people are like brand new. They're like, what class is most OP? Well, right now I'll tell you for sure it's Spiritborn. Make sure you watch the gameplay because you might not like that playstyle. And another thing I want to mention is after you watch that video and you really like that gameplay, you do not have to copy exactly in the campaign when you first start, because the first start that you have to do in terms of your steps, the first starting point is to do the campaign. But again, while you're doing the campaign, have fun. Don't follow the guide for the campaign. Honestly, kind of experiment in the earlier stages, as the game is pretty easy at this point and you can definitely breeze through the campaign. If it's your first action RPG, that's fine. If you do get stuck, feel free to go look up a guide, but I think for the first time, just do the campaign. You could literally play with any skill. You'll make it through. I believe in you. But at the end game, that's where things are a little bit different when you are progressing from start to finish here. So the first thing that you want to do from the start to kind of the middle of the game state. So the first thing that you need to do is do the campaign. So that's going to be part of the story. It's required to kind of experience kind of the end game, so to speak. You do have to finish the campaign, and then after you do that, you want to do what's called the Renown. If you open up the menu, let me show you guys kind of like what the Renown looks like. So if you go ahead and hit escape and then go to your region progress, or what was originally called like the Renown or collection screen, it opens up this. This is kind of what you're looking for. So go into the menus. I don't know what your hotkey is. Mine is like you, but you can find out whatever your seasonal hotkey is as well. But basically you want to look at like the region progress. And the reason why this matters is it will give you some extra like bonus XP and gold, which honestly doesn't matter. We're really here for the additional skill points and the Paragon points, and all of this is only needed to do once. So what you're going to look for on the mini-map in terms of after you've completed the campaign, you may have actually completed a bunch of these anyways while you are doing the campaign, but there's a lot of these little like waypoints, strongholds, side quests, and just discovering areas, kind of exploring the map. It's actually really cool to do one time. And after you do it one time, you never have to do it again, which is awesome because, well, it's not the most fun thing to do twice. But you just need to do the Renown once, and you want to go ahead and actually do that. And if you are actually running on a brand new season, there's usually like some sort of seasonal journey, which will give you a bunch of different rewards, as well as like a Heraldric knowledge tab right now, currently in season 9. There's a bunch of free rewards, but you want to go ahead and get to 60 if you are starting a new character after you finish the campaign and after you finish your Renown. The next step is basically to get to max level, which now it's 60. I know before you can see there's level 100 gameplay, but it has changed since then. But again, the point of the video is for like those newer players and returning players. But your whole goal is to get to level 60 and then get to the tormented difficulties, because all of the gear until you get those ancestrals, which is 800 item power, are all going to be salvaged basically, as in you're never going to equip items from the very beginning. So don't be too stingy with holding on to loot unless you're using it it currently, just go salvage it. You'll get better stuff as you progress in the game. Unless it's a greater affix, it will guaranteed always be replaced, because it's just that some of the lower item powers cannot roll with these higher stats on them. And then you can decide how you want to grind to 60. That can be doing nightmare dungeons. You can have a friend carry you in the pit for like the fastest method, but ideally you're just going to go do nightmare dungeons, and you could do whispers, you can do whatever you want to, and you're slowly going to build into the Paragon boards and start getting these glyphs, and you're going to start leveling up these glyphs as you progress in the pit. You're also going to be getting a bunch of currency via just doing these nightmare dungeons, which is kind of a big area for the end game. It's pretty much doing nightmare dungeons to get Obducite to reroll on your items for masterworking, and then also you want to do the pit because that is a big source of your XP, as well as this only way to upgrade your glyphs in the Paragon board like sockets. So that's like the main area that you're doing. I know it's kind of faster to say just grind to 60. It will take several hours, so don't feel bad if it's like taking you longer than others. Some people can do it in 5 times the speed. Don't worry too much about like what another streamer or content creator is doing. Some builds just aren't as good also. That's totally fine. Some builds don't have mobility. That's just the nature of this game in the current state, is there are builds that are 10 times faster. So don't worry too much about that. And then also one thing that is important after you finish the campaign, you do the Renown, you can do a lot of things over on the map. If you open up, again, there's the Whispers, which is like the Tree of Whispers. That's another great way to have kind of some objectives while you're doing other objectives. You can also do the Helltide, but I'm gonna be honest, most people, it's just the Nightmare Dungeons. If you want to get there the fastest, it's Nightmare Dungeons for most players, as well as getting carried in the pit. But again, you want to slowly build in those Paragon boards, and then also get those seasonal powers. This is a big source of upgrades. If you are playing a seasonal character, there's always these new powers that you can add to your character. Some of these are absolutely game defining and can pretty much carry you through the leveling progression as well. Another huge important thing to do is get all of the aspects that you need. Sometimes these are random drops, but there are ways to kind of guarantee get some of these aspects. And this is a really great tool. It's via D4 Builds GG. It just shows the entire map, and I know it's kind of like scary, but there's a little filter on the side that you can kind of type in maybe what like class skills that you're looking for if you know the name of it. But if you're playing a very specific build, look up which dungeon can actually have that aspect. So once you do these dungeons, you're going to be able to get guaranteed the aspects, and this is how you kind of progress in the end game as well as in the earlier stages. Maybe while you're doing the campaign, you might have got a legendary. You can go to the blacksmith, salvage that item, then you can go to the occultist and imprint that special power onto the other thing. It's going to cost some materials, but for the most part in the earlier stages, the materials are so abundant, it won't be that big of a deal. But basically what you want to do is you want to kind of choose what skill that you want and funnel all the damage that says, like, let's say if you're playing Flurry Rogue, well, you can push all of your things into Flurry. If you're playing a Death Trap Rogue, you want all the trap kind of stuff that goes into that build. Again, if you are following a build guide, it'll kind of tell you what aspects that you were looking for, but this is like the main area that you can guarantee get whatever aspect that you want to actually get. It's just the easiest way. Now, keep in mind, it always gives you the worst roll when you guarantee get it from the Nightmare Dungeon, but it's better than nothing. Again, these ones actually just need to be the regular dungeons, and you're going to go ahead and get those aspects. That's a huge way to get a huge power boost. And then also, again, anything that you get, don't be too stingy on holding on to items. You're like, maybe I want to use this later. Honestly, you're going to keep on getting newer items, especially while you're leveling up until 60. So there's a lot of these things where you're just going to replace things constantly. Even if you get another thing that has higher like item power, salvage the old one, go to the occultist, put that power on the brand new one with extra item power. So unless it has a star, which is considered the ancestrals, the greater affix, it's going to pretty much always be replaced. Now, if you do get like a little star icon once you're in the tormented difficulties, then you could start thinking about, okay, this is going to be the best in slot over here. Another thing that you want to try to do in your build is try to get all the legendary items that you need for your build, or the uniques. These are usually acquired from doing the bosses, but also these seasonal cash rewards are excellent. They give you a bunch of things if you are playing in the seasons. It's a huge area to get upgrades. You can also get a lot of uniques and other legendary items via doing the Helltide or Whisper turn-ins. These are okay to start. You can also build up your obols, but honestly, wait until you're into the tormented difficulties to really use your obols. And the reason why is as you go up in difficulty, you get way more chances to get your legendary items and them being a greater affix, which is essentially the only items that matter at the end game in Diablo 4. You want to spend your obols at the vendor once you are, again, in Tormented 4. If you can ideally get a carry to Tormented 4, there's people that do these in Discords, they'll just carry people for free. And what you can do is you can just bump the difficulty to Torment 4, spend all your obols, and then move back to whatever difficulty that you're kind of at. If you're wondering what's the best difficulty to start off on, even the best players, we actually start off on normal difficulty because it's much faster to just breeze through everything. And then if you are one-shotting everything in the next difficulty, like on hard, expert, whatever, then you could still just bump up the difficulty. There's no reason why not to, but ideally you're going to progress into tormented difficulties. And as you progress into these difficulties, you will lose armor and you will lose resistances, but your ideal cap is to get 1,000 armor. And then for resistances, you want to try to ideally get to around 70, 75 is kind of the cap now, as they have updated it in Season 9. But for the most part, don't worry too much about resistances. As long as they're not too negative, it can be okay in Diablo. Path of Exile, that's another story. But in Diablo, you really don't need to cap resistances, but you do 100% need to cap out on armor. If you need to cap out your armor, you can get the aspect called Juggernaut, or also the Disobedience aspect. Those two will basically get you all the way through the game in terms of survivability. But again, Helltide and Whispers are okay, but your ideal goal is just to slam Nightmare Dungeons again and again if you really want the best chance at your progression, because you're going to start building up other currencies. Also, another thing to mention is while you are progressing in the earlier stages up until 60 here, you can temper and masterwork. Sometimes you may get the recipes. That's why I say it's not necessarily in this order, because if you just get the tempering recipe for your like fireball or your penetrating shot to either do double damage or cast twice, those are your biggest upgrades in the earlier stages of the game. And when you salvage the thing later, you will get all of your material back. It will not give you your gold back, but it will give you a bunch of the materials back. So don't feel like, oh, I'm going to have to get the best item before I start tempering and masterworking. Honestly, the most important thing with the temper is putting that double damage on early on is going to give you a huge advantage. And then also, once you start basically enabling the pit in the game, you're going to be able to start upgrading your glyphs. This is a huge area for upgrading, and then basically Nightmare Dungeons. Again, the whole game is really focused in on Nightmare Dungeons, especially with the new season, with all of like the Heraldric stuff to get your powers. You're going to do those escalations to acquire the powers, as well as getting more Obducite. And then the mid game kind of starts around Paragon, I'd say 100-ish. The mid end game, that is, because we're going from like the start kind of to the middle here, where now you're going to have a bunch of your glyphs acquired, but you may not want to socket them on early on. And the thing with the game in terms of its progression is on the Paragon board, you actually don't want to try to get a glyph socket early on and then start putting all the things around it. Unless you need it for a very specific, like apply vulnerability, the best ways that you are going to get a huge upgrade once you start progressing into like, I got about 100 Paragon points, you could actually look at getting like 2 to 3 boards and just getting the legendary node, because that's going to give you the biggest number, because in the very earlier stages of upgrading your glyphs, which is a big source of your power, and I'll go bring this up real quick. So looking at some of these numbers over here, like this is just a glyph, it doesn't really matter which one it is, but a lot of these will give you some bonus damage once you reach level 46 in the upgrades, when you start upgrading these in the pit. But also, what you want to try to do is make sure that you reach the bonus, because it'll usually give you a bonus when you have either some sort of amount of strength, dexterity, and it depends on the area, and you may want to socket it in a certain area. Again, this is mostly things that you'd find in the build guide that you can just copy, but getting these legendary nodes on the Paragon board earlier on are going to make a huge advantage, because these numbers over here, they start off really bad and they only get good once you get to level 46 and you eventually get it to 100. All of these multipliers are going to be way better, but it takes time to actually get into it. So again, that's kind of like my little tip right here when you are using the Paragon board. Don't try to put all the nodes in the very beginning of the board. Like for example, in the start over here, I see this mistake where people just start filling in like everything earlier on. You will get these boards for free. Also, another thing that's quite important, when you start adding more boards, you can actually rotate these boards as well, because some people that are copying, let's say, a build guide may not know this, and they're like, how come his Paragon board is different than mine? It's because you can rotate the board. So keep in mind when you are trying to copy a build that you pay attention if it is rotated or not. But again, your main goal is to get all of your items with greater affixes where there's a little star next to the thing, where again, it will have 800 item power. And then you, actually we can maybe show this off. This is actually kind of important. So if you mouse over the item over here, let me move this, and you'll see that like these items all have 800 item power, and there's a little like star next to it. That is a big thing that you want to make sure that you focus in on, as if you don't, well, the item can never be like the best in slot, so to speak. But your whole goal is basically to slam as much pits and nightmare dungeons to get Obducite, and eventually you're going to slowly go from Tormented 1 to Tormented 4. Again, remember, you want 1,000 armor. Resistances 70, 75 is ideal, but you might not really need it. But 1,000 armor is 100% required. And make sure that you check your armor as you go up in Tormented difficulties, as that does change. And then also, I will link a guide in several videos, and I'll mention these at the end here. But there's a ton of videos that I have already ready for you guys. So if you need to learn like how to, get your armor, how to get more defenses, I have a dedicated video towards that, because some of you guys may not need it. There are builds that are legitimately thousands of times better than other builds, and you may not need this survivability because you're just deleting everything, right? And then as far as doing like Helltide and Whispers at the end game, again, I'm highly going to recommend players to stay away from this form of content, as it really won't make your character gain power. Your only real source of getting power in terms of like the end game is really just getting a bunch of boss materials again and again, and rotating these bosses and doing them hundreds and thousands of times to get that specific mythic unique, or that unique with a good drop. So Helltide, it is okay because you are building into materials. Same thing with Whispers, but once you get those materials, you kind of want to get to doing the content that is going to require these as keys. But once you get that mythic, your goal is then to get power via doing the nightmare dungeons to get Obducite to upgrade your stuff, or the pit to upgrade the glyphs, which is going to give you big damage. But another thing is that you want to also redo your tempers. A lot of times in the earlier game, they give you like low temper rolls, like there's like normal, magic, and then there's like the rare ones, and then there's the legendary ones. These go up in numbers, so make sure you have like the legendary thing when you go to the blacksmith and you actually temper on and you masterwork your stuff, that the temper is a legendary one, because if you don't have that and you're crafting it on a greater affix item, be ready to completely waste that item because you didn't get like the legendary node. The rolls are going to be much higher on that double damage on a legendary tempering recipe than another one. But your main goal is to get every single one of your items to have all of the stars. See how this has the stars? You start off as circles and they go to diamonds, but you want to max this out completely. Every single item must say masterworking 12 out of 12. It's free stats 99% of the time. It's always going to be better. There are very, very rare exceptions, but for the most part, everything is going to be good. The one exception for very specific builds is when resource cost reduction gets too high, you can actually run into some resource problems because you need to spend energy for something to work. But don't worry about it too much. It's for like a very, very, very niche thing. But for the most part, 12 out of 12 is always what you want to do. And you also want to start farming the Mythics. I also have a video guide on the Mythics. We'll talk about that in a second. But if you need to get more Obducite for your upgrades, there are several ways to do it. Honestly, just doing Nightmare Dungeons is absolutely key. But then you can also use different tributes to get your Obducite. You can also go to the Undercity with the mercenaries, with the bartering system, with the little Citadel coins. That can be good. And then also, if you want to engage in high forms of endgame content, you need to sell your items for gold or interact with players to do trades on Discords. This is the best way to realistically farm the endgame. The real farm of the endgame, to be honest, is not just doing content again and again and hoping the items drop. You are going to get your greater affix items and list them on trade websites or Discords, and then you sell them for gold, and then you take those and you buy Belial boss mats. You can tactically get any T4 one except for Andariel. That one is trash. Don't do it. It's just going to cause a lot of frustration. Any sort of boss that you can do. And again, I will also provide a video that will really help you out, and I promise it'll save you hundreds of hours. Do not sit there trying to farm your boss materials by going and saying, okay, I'm going to go do Helltide again and again and again so I can get the Living Steel to do the Gregor boss. No, that's like wrong. You get items that are G8, you sell them for gold, you buy Belial mats. That's just the reality of the game. That is the best way to actually progress in the end game. Another thing I want to mention in terms of upgrading your characters at the pit, as this is a big source of our upgrades. A lot of builds may tap out at pit 70. If you're feeling like you are stuck, I have 2 video guides that will really help you out. I'm talking about the one that's going to 100x your damage, and then also one to help you not get one-shotted, because those are the 2 main forms of endgame content that may hit kind of like a wall, and some builds, again, they are thousands of times better. Most builds, honestly, can do about pit 90 with pretty good gear, and all of the meta builds will do about 100. That's kind of where the game is shaping up right now, so you may have picked a bad build, and that's totally fine. It doesn't mean you have to remake your character. Most characters, at least as of right now, every single class can do pit 100. It's just some builds are way better at it, and some builds may need a carry in order to get their glyphs up to 100, as some builds may not be able to do 100 on their own, so you have to find a group. Most likely a Spiritborn or a Hydrasork will be the main carry. And then if you really want to get to the end tippity top of the game, it's basically going on to the pit leaderboards. But for the most part, if you want to min-max harder, like if you really want to invest more time in the end game, after you got all of your mythics, you got everything greater affix, what's like kind of the next goal here? Well, if you really want to min-max harder, and this is again for mostly like the top players, but if you want to go over here, I'm gonna be honest, it is a lot of repetitive stuff, but you really want to engage in trade. Again, this is like kind of the ultimate form of endgame content. It's pretty much doing the pit and going as high as you possibly can, and then also getting your Obducite so you can reroll and get the perfect stats on your pieces of gear. But mainly it's that you need to get these perfect aspects that will almost never, and I mean never, drop for your average players to get everything perfect. It's going to take an insane amount of luck, but they have updated in Season 9. If you keep on doing these strong rooms, you can get a lot more greater affixes as rewards at the end, but again, it might not be for the aspect that you want, and that's kind of an annoyance. But it's getting these perfect aspects and perfect rolls on all of the unique pieces of gear, but if you engage in trade, this is just a much better area, especially if you're trying to get like 3 to 4 greater affix items. Again, Diablo trade is your friend. I have a dedicated video. Check that one out. Again, I'll provide a lot of other stuff in a moment here. And then also the Diablo Sanctuary Discord is a fantastic area for you guys to go ahead and trade your items for gold and then get those perfect aspects and those 3 or 4 GA items, which is like the godliest thing. And the next thing is basically push in the pit as high as you can go. That's kind of the only form that we really have for power, because the open world content really isn't too much of a challenge no matter what your build actually is. But I want to tell you guys that there's also basically a limit. Even though the pit can go up to 150, I have done it myself. Most of the builds that do 150, honestly, though, they're like bugged and they're not supposed to be able to do it. No one's really doing 150s legitimately. That's just the way the game is right now. However, maybe in the future this will change, but I just want to let you guys know, like, even though you can go up to pit 150, it's not achievable. Like, it's not even like a skill issue. If you want that as a challenge, go for it. But most builds will pretty much tap out at like 100 plus. There are a couple times where people will push like 120, 113. They'll do really high pits, but these are players that play for 30 hours a day with no bathroom breaks, and they might get really lucky all day playing. They get one good rift and they finally get that clear, and then they can post it on the leaderboards to flex, and then, you know, their mom will be very proud of them, and you can print it out and she'll put it on the refrigerator. But for the most part, guys, this isn't really necessary. Don't feel like you have to do pit 100. You're gonna have a much better time, honestly, by making more characters in the game and different builds. Not every single build will do pit 100 even, but like doing a few different builds, playing a couple different classes, I promise you is going to be much more enjoyable, because it's not much of a grind versus the other methods. Now I want to give you guys some extra bonus tips for seasons. Make sure again that you do the seasonal quest, because you can actually craft mythics. Again, dedicated video on that again. And then if you're stuck on damage, like you feel like my DPS isn't good enough, you can see this is the brand new Astaroth boss, max difficulty, and we delete him. He's already dead. It's just he has a you can't damage me phase. And then if you are getting one-shotted consistently, watch my defense video guide. Also, you can do Tormented Lilith to get a spark, which is another great way for progression, because mythic items are good. And then also, I'm going to mention another video. If you're running out of specific materials, check out my best way to farm everything. And again, I'll have a lot of these linked. But if you need to know where to get the unique items, this is a great video for Season 9. Again, I'll provide that also. And then also the best Mythic tier list. If you want to know what Mythics are the best for your class, as they're going to be different, make sure you guys check that one out as well. And then also how to farm the Mythics, and then also, again, how to not die. I know it says Season 7. I'll make a new update to this, but for the most part, you can watch it, and it's going to be probably the same as the other other one, but I will update that one. And as far as how to 100 extra damage, again, this is technically from Season 8, but I will be updating this relatively soon. But it's still all pretty much the same materials, and if you want to know how to farm everything, crafting materials and stuff, again, I will also link that video. I know there's a lot of things to go over, but I want to try to make this video as quickly as possible. I could maybe make this hour long plus, but there's so many steps, and if you felt like I missed out on anything, definitely let me know down below so we can help out other Diablo players in the community. But yeah, that's kind of the main thing that you want to do. And as far as the steps go, again, some of these can go out of order because you may just get that really lucky unique that drops GA earlier on in the game. But that's gonna wrap it up. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. If you're new here, hit subscribe, turn the bell if you guys would like to see more guides and other action RPG and more game content in the future. Take care. I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.